because I'm going to know everything that happened and why. And you are going to be going, how did this happen? What happened? What's going on? What do we do? Who do we follow? The prophets have fled. How could this happen? The church was true. And I'm just going to go, bleep you. And then you're going to get mad at me. Why are you getting mad at me? I've been warning you for years and you would not listen. Well, YouTube never showed me your channel. Exactly. Exactly. The federal government failed us. That's what it means. That's what pissed me off with January 6th. Not that it happened, but that I had warned my federal government in advance and it still happened. And here we go again. I have warned my government in advance, and it's still set to happen. Travis Wingoodsall, with so many first-time viewers, despite all these years, despite over 8,000 videos, nonetheless, there's a whole ton of first-timers. And it was just a week ago, just last week, where Mormons were attacking me with an ad populum fallacy. You suck, Travis, because you don't get any views. It's YouTube. That's why I didn't get views. And because we're nearing conference, and they've got to also be backing off. Maybe the guy went on vacation. I am getting normal viewing now. Sort of. We're getting there. Mormons and ex-Mormons and former Mormons and never Mormons, come to my channel. They will want to come to my channel, even if it's just to see what is this new thing he's talking about. We've never heard Exfo Nevermost talk about this. This can't be true. Mormons, yeah, well, he's an apostate. We're not gonna listen to him. I'm just gonna go and put a thumbs down and run away. I promise I won't listen. As he's telling his bishop confessing. Because you have to. If you click on my video as a Mormon, you automatically now have to go talk to your bishop and confess that you're listening to an apostate. You'll be disciplined. 3.27 of your wives will be taken away from you. And so, just came to mind Doctrine and Covenants, section 117, about the Nicolaitan band. In section 100, okay, we got it. So this is what we're doing. We're going over the coup of the government by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because it's been, what, a video since I last talked about it? All these new people. God. So, section 117 is a forged document. It's claimed to have been written July 8th, 1838, by Joseph Smith, the prophet, rather than the seer. The Danites called him the seer in the Times and Seasons, consistently, over and over again. The seer, the seer, the seer, the seer. And now it's the prophet. Strange. Even Thomas B. Marsh calls him the prophet rather than the seer. We're going to get to him. And so we know this is a forged document because when you learn that ink fades 40 years later, the original documents from 1838, by the time this was finally put in the Doctrine and Covenants, were faded. And yet, all of these documents are put in the Doctrine and Covenants the year before Brigham Young died, 1876, in his Doctrine and Covenants, claiming to be by Joseph. And yet, the Joseph Smith Papers, released by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the home page says it's the authoritative source for all things Joseph Smith. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are not correcting any of the necessary changes that need to be made, nor are they announcing any of the changes in conference. Shh. Secret. Okay? And so, section 116 specifically, talking about Adam on Diamond, is all in this batch that were put in that same year, some 40 years later. And sure enough, the Joseph Smith Papers shows the original manuscripts that they began section 116, 15 with even, to show that they were all written 40 years later. They were not written in 1838. These are all forged documents, therefore. Section 119 was published in 1844, after Joseph Smith died. But it violates the Book of Mormon as an abomination. It's a full-on criminal document. I did that video a couple of weeks ago or so. And so, this is Brigham Young and his missionaries' document that they created. And so, if you don't know, 1981's edition of the Triple Combination with the footnotes, topical guide, Bible dictionary in 79 for the Bible, and then an index for the Triple, was intended to decode the Doctrine and Covenants. Because the original Doctrine and Covenants had some coding in it. Names and places with different names and places than the actual names and places. The Community of Christ which she most likely sold it to the church. She's done away with the church and Joseph Smith. The church didn't want the bodies of Joseph and Hiram, though, so the community of Christ are forced to still have the burial plots. The church was able to scam her out of just a couple $100 million for the whole thing. Which, for Mormons, is worth multi-hundreds of billions. And she settled for just a couple $100 million as the brand new, first ever Mormon female president of a branch off. Hilarious. Oh, the church hates women. And that proved it. And so, the church claims all of the coded words are now decoded in the Doctrine and Covenants. So, verse 8. Is there not enough room on the mountains of Adam-on-Diamond? Oops. And on the plains of Olaha Shinar? Oops. Or the land where Adam dwelt. And if you've ever read the Mormon Doctrine by Bruce R. McConkie, you see that he defines Adam-on-Diamond as the land where Adam dwelt. Wrong. Dear God, Bruce, it's Olaha Shinar. That is the land where Adam dwelt. Know your English grammar, and you can figure it out, because it comes after Olaha Shinar rather than Adam-on-Diamond. Because otherwise it should be worded, is there not enough room on the mountains of Adam-on-Diamond, or the land where Adam dwelt, and on the plains of Olaha Shinar? See how it changes the meaning? That you should covet that which is but the drop and neglect the more weightier matters. Now, verse 11. Let my servant Newell K. Whitney be ashamed of the Nicolaitan band and of all their secret abominations, and of all his littleness of soul before me, saith the Lord, and come up to the land of Adam-on-Diamond. Forgery did not exist in 1838, or at least by Joseph Smith, because section 116 is right there in new fresh ink the year before Brigham Young died to be put in the Doctrine and Covenants, and thus 40 years later would have been 1838, and so it's not 1838. Game, set, match. Investigation. Amazing. And so, Joseph Smith never went to Adam-on-Diamond and said, this is Adam-on-Diamond. Oh, look, it's the altar where Adam offered sacrifices and said Peleel. Nope, none of that was Joseph. Just a simple research and investigation using the Joseph Smith papers, and boom. This forged document is proof of the truth. And thus why Mark Hoffman did his little stunt. And nobody seems to understand what's his motive. What's his motive? We don't know. Oh no. Okay? And so, he had the home right there by Adam-on-Diamond. Also, Benjamin Franklin Johnson, likewise with his family, moved to Adam-on-Diamond. When he moved to Adam-on-Diamond, he was arrested, locked up in Adam-on-Diamond upon moving there. He's Mormon. They're Mormon. What's going on? And then a hooligan shows up and says, I'm going to shoot you dead unless you deny Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon as Jewish. And he says, I never denied my testimony of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Ta-da! See, we don't get told that version of the story in seminary. And the gun pistol misfired, supposedly. No. Benjamin Franklin Johnson was in on the con. It was all cover, because we're going to get to it. Once you identify the Nicolaitan band as the Danites, then any other source document that you eventually find and research for, you plug it in, see the connection to the Danites to see whether he was a victim of the Danites or one of them, or adopted in. As last month, I believe it was, I did the George Richards, forgetting the name. I just did a research video for you on him, and sure enough, he was in England, was snuck to church by the maid, joined in violation of his parents' orders, and then was put to work with the mission president to, God, church made him an evil man. But yeah, that's what you do, is you see the connection with factual information. You got to assemble the facts. And that's why I keep telling you guys, when you're doing research, have a page for names, places, events, and dates, so that you can cross-reference them when you come up with a match. And so if those who have the Sidney Rigdon as the major author of the Book of Mormon theory, and they claim that Sidney had met Solomon Spaulding at the mail post office box there in Pittsburgh, they would be able to reference and go, okay, Sidney Rigdon was in Pittsburgh during these years, Solomon Spaulding was in Pittsburgh during, oh, nope, no match. Oops. Real easy breezy cover girl, or maybe it's Maybelline and nobody wants to do the research. They just figure something out and they think they're going to run with it and conclude that they know the church is false or true. Okay? And so pay attention also, because he is being called to be a bishop unto my people. He wasn't. He was not called by Joseph Smith to be a bishop. Remember, this is a forged document. Okay? There is no incorporated Adam on Diamond. Okay? Did not exist. But here it is. Joseph Smith is saying, stay away from the Danites. They're bad people. Come to Adam on Diamond and be a bishop. The Nicolaitan band comes from Revelation, chapter 2, 6 and 15. And so this is something that Christians know about, because early Christian writers were the ones who talked about these guys. And they lied, of course, and they're making stories up, but it gets spread among Christians that that's what's being referred to when you say the Nicolaitan band from Revelation chapter 2, verses 6 and 15. The leader of this group, way back in the supposed Roman period time, is accused of passing around his wife to the other members of the band, and they in turn passed around their wives to others of the band. Not just polygamy. They had polygamous wives, and it was all a shared community. And so thus perpetuating the story of the Nicolaitan band as being abominable people, extremist group They were radical in their doctrinal interpretation, and they're also being accused of being militant. Okay? And so, Joseph Smith has nothing to do with this. They themselves say he didn't. Joseph Smith is not practicing polygamy. Did you catch that? Ex-foe never mows. In 1874, Brigham Young also came out with a sermon in which he said that Joseph Smith wasn't smart enough to get revelation for polygamy. It was Brigham who did, without authority, when he was on his mission in England, he claims. And so, yes, the 1843 is what he's trying to refer to, which is section 132, also created and put in the year before he died, replacing Joseph Smith's monogamy. There is no evidence whatsoever, only hearsay, that Joseph was polygamist. And those hearsays all came to this valley. The people who are practicing it are the people accusing Joseph Smith of it. So, that's the Nicolaitan band. That's the Danites, as they called themselves. So the history of the Danites involves the 1838 war, in which there was an election being held that year, in October, I believe. Could be September. I'd have to check. I don't memorize. Associative memory. And in the election, there was a guy who was running for office who says, I know exactly how to develop the land, which was Adam-on-Diamond. He knew nothing about ownership. There was no incorporation of it, like they finally did for Nauvoo after this. The Danites were using the land for their secret meetings. Newell K. Whitney and his house. And so they made him the bagman, bishop, to collect the money. Section 119. Remember? It's all a list of crimes. And so the deacons, technically, are Brigham Young's paper boys who want their $2. They're going to break your kneecaps. Better off dead. And John Cusack. And she plays mute as a foreign exchange student, so that that boy just, oh, the poor girl. I want to save you from him. And so the Danites are going, oh crap, if he wins the election, he's going to take our land that they don't own because they didn't incorporate it. And so, instead of saying, well, we have the land, we're in the process of incorporating it. No, they won't be honest about it. And so, that's when they called around for other Danites, converted by Brigham Young's missionaries, to come to Adam-on-Diamond. Thus Newell K. Whitney, Benjamin Franklin Johnson, and many, many others. You know, most likely if you're of pioneer ancestry during the time of 1838, yeah, you're a Danite descendant. Cox, Curtis, Stewart, Mendenhall. Sound familiar? You're all Danites, right, Lee? Both of them. The one in the state legislature. Senate. Yep, both. Yep, John D. Lee was there too. And so they met Noel K. Whitney's home and then marched down to the polling station and intimidated the people who were voting to, tamper with the vote, claim election fraud, bamboo being used for the votes, immigrants are voting twice. Sound familiar? It's the same pattern. Not the same accusations, but the same pattern. And so there were a group of townspeople who were not happy with these outsiders coming to tamper with the vote. And I believe it was Stewart's ancestor who was the first to get knocked to the floor. And war ensued, the Civil War in America, there in Missouri. And one of the Mormons yelled out, "We are the Danites," and that's where it comes from. Danites is Hebrew for judges, in case you don't know your Hebrew. And so they are the judges for Judgment Day. The latter days, they've got a plot and a coup going on. And I'd have to go back to the Illuminati in Prussia, I think it was, back in 17, or was it Germany finally in 1776 of May 1st? But anyway, regardless of what they called the land, they're in the land which is now called Germany. And so, yeah, the whole Illuminati thing. Thus, the inverted pentagrams all over this church. As Mormons, we have exclusive additional knowledge about Lucifer and his plan of happiness. And yet, Mormons play dumb. No, it's the coming of Jesus for the second coming. So he falls from heaven to save people? Weird. And so after the election, the guy won. So the Danites then rushed off, and we're talking over 1,000 guys that went down there to decertify the election. And that's what they did. They went to a sheriff's cabin and log cabin or whatever home they had back in those days, and to the judge in the area and threatened them. You got a big old mob of Danites who failed to coup the election. And now they're going on January 6th to the government to smear poop on the walls of the Capitol to decertify the election. To have those judges, that judge and that sheriff, sign affidavits saying it's Joseph Smith who's telling them, as the leader of the Danites, to decertify the election. And war breaks out. And I just read to you from their own document, Joseph Smith was not the leader of the Danites. They forgot, I guess, after 40 years. Joseph Smith was 2 days horse ride away. They're in far west Missouri. Okay? And so that's what happened. And so Mormons got framed and blamed, who had nothing to do with the Danites or their conversion into the church. They were through some of the original Mormon and the original missionaries through that initial missionary work. They were not from Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball's missionary efforts and through their initial converts who were of the Illuminati that came into America to coup the government. But Joseph Smith Sr. is the American hero that nobody knows about unless you watch my videos, who saved America on 9/11/1826. And thus was the birth of the Book of Mormon, the 116 pages of William Morgan. Nobody's made that connection but me. I mean, dear God. Under William Morgan, they say that there's a possible connection to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because he was among the first to be baptized for the dead, and that his wife was living across the street from Joseph Smith and went with Brigham Young to the valley, and then they left. Gave up on the church. But nonetheless, no. Nobody stopped to think, hey, wait a minute, there's a book under William Morgan's name. Let's count the number of pages in that book. Oh, it's 116 pages. The same number of pages of the original Book of Mormon until Martin Harris stole it. Nobody thinks about these things. Nobody does their research. Come on, people. Making me do this. I don't want to do this. I want to read from somebody else who did it. I'm lazy, like you. It's what being born and raised in the covenant Mormon is. We're lazy learners and lax disciples, sitting on our couch, pretending to listen to conference when we're on vacation at the Capitol, smearing poop on the walls. And so whatever Nelson and Oakes said at conference is true. Whatever it was. And then you disobey them because you didn't listen. You have no clue what it was that they were ordering you to do. And we're going to get to it. Because you missed those conferences. And so you failed your test. All right. So during this war, Thomas B. Marsh, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, leaves the church, signs an affidavit about the threat of the Danites, and thus the extermination order of Mormons. And so he says, October 24th, 1838, at the request of a committee of the citizens of Ray County, I make the following statement in relation to the recent movements, plans, and intentions of the Mormons. He's lumping Mormons with Danites together in the counties of Caldwell and Daviess. Shortly after the settlement of the difficulties at DeWitt in Carroll County, a call was made up by the Mormons. Remember, he combines Mormons with Danites together. By the Danites at Far West in Caldwell County for volunteers to go to Daviess County. The Danites went to Far West, 2 days' ride, and put out a call. We're at war. And so they've already got the Danites there. Now the Danites are going back and trying to get innocent Mormons who don't know anything about this and think that the church is true, and therefore the Danites are Mormons just like them, and so why would they lie? Why would there be a secret combination in the one true church of Jesus? They, the Danites, called it Jesus Christ Church. It's all throughout the Joseph Smith papers. And to disperse the mob, as they said. And so they're saying, on the day before this, they say, because he doesn't say that, he just assumes Joseph Smith is the leader of the Danites. He's not. Joseph Smith the prophet, not seer, which the Danites called him in Nauvoo, in which he said that all the Mormons who refuse to take up arms, if necessary in difficulties with the citizens, should be shot or otherwise put to death. And this involves Thomas B. Marsh leaving the church because he was threatened by these Danites for that reason. You're refusing to take up arms and join our merry band of robbers and thieves. And David Whitmer was another one who, when he got chased out, went to Oliver Cowdery and told him Joseph Smith is murdering Mormons who don't join his murderous band. And he changed the name of the church without a vote. Got to have a vote to change the name of the church. Section 115, no vote, not legitimate. Hey, it's a forged document, no wonder. Wrong name of the church, Nelson. You're lying to Mormons, naughty naughty. And so thus, Benjamin Franklin Johnson, join us or be shot. See the connection? And as I was there with my family, I thought it most prudent to go, and did go with my wagon as the driver. He's a rich man. Had a wagon rather than just a horse or a carriage or a handcart. Those were for the poor people who were put into slavery with the Perpetual Immigration Fund of 1849. We marched to Adam-on-Diamond and found no troops or mob in Daviess County. Huh. Because the land is not developed yet. Only Newell K. Whitney. That's the secret headquarters. But he was deceived by these Danites. They were telling him stories as we got a storm coming in, I see, and not to mention the laundry is about done in the wash cycle. Scouting parties frequently went out and brought in intelligence that they had seen. See, they're militant. Huh. Also, Joseph Smith testifies of his innocence before it even began. This didn't get published until Nauvoo in 1842 with the correct name of the church that was not voted on. So listen very carefully to the 1838 version of Visions. Owing to the many reports which have been put in circulation. Who puts reports about the church that Joseph Smith founded and about the Book of Mormon? Missionaries. By evil disposed and designing persons in relation to the rise and progress of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, all of which have been designed by the authors thereof to militate against its character as a church and its progress in the world. Joseph Smith reveals who the enemy is before he even knew who the enemy was, before they actually attempted the coup. And thus, because of their coup, he was unable to publish this until 1842, because the Danites finally incorporated Nauvoo and were gathering Mormons to it. Both converts to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Book of Mormon as another testament of Jesus Christ, but also suckers and losers who didn't know any better. So Joseph, when he gets there, goes, "Oh, you got a print press? Yeah, I got some stuff from 1838 that didn't get published." So the Book of Abraham also got published, with only 3 facsimiles. That's an interesting order that you put them in, Brigham. I wonder if I've done a video or several 8,000 of them that explain the translation of them for my audience, my 1 or 2 viewers, unless it's conference time. This is the Danites. The Joseph Smith Papers exposes that Willard Richards, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles under Brigham Young, was the one who put in Jesus. A Danite. That's why Jesus is not named. And yet Mormon missionaries still, to this very day, follow Brigham Young's exact same pattern in verse 1. Still evil designed and evil disposed and designing militant Mormons going around the world lying about Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. Okay? So they marched to Adam-on-Diamond. Found no troops or mob in Daviess County. Scouting parties frequently went out and brought intelligence that they had seen from 3 to 5 men just prancing around in the brush. We got to Diamond on Tuesday evening, and on the next day, a company of about 80 of the Mormons. Am I going to need to close the blind or the windows? It's nice to be able to get some fresh air blowing in after all this summer. Let's see, and I just cleaned the windows today too. Commanded by a man fictitiously named Captain Fearnot. See, they can't even call themselves by their own name. I mean, Mormons would never create a fake channel name on YouTube and pose that to attack me, would they? No. Mormons don't do that. March to Gallatin. And this was the incident in which turned off Thomas B. Marsh. So there's nobody in Adam-on-Diamond. And so only reports say that there were 3 to 5 men frolicking around in the brush. And so then 80 of them, led by Captain Fearnot, Underpants Fearnot, go marching to Gallatin. They returned and said they had run off from Gallatin 20 or 30 men and had taken Gallatin. Had taken 1 prisoner and another had joined the company. So turncoat. They adopted in another Danite terrorist. I afterwards learned from the Mormons, keeps calling them Mormons when they're Danites, that he spells Hiram the correct way. Fun. That they had burned Gallatin. Pay attention, because this is what they do. This is what they're plotting. The day that shall burn as an oven, and they that come shall burn you, Mormons. And that it was done by the aforesaid company that marched there. The Mormons informed me that they had hauled away all the goods from the store in Gallatin. And if you don't know, there's a a city market. Little House on the Prairie. There you go. You all watch that. It's safe, right? Except for the one time where she's bathing. I had better shows to watch. And so my siblings went upstairs to the master bedroom and watched it on their TV up there. Well, I stayed downstairs to watch the cool stuff. The real Mormon shows like Battlestar Galactica. And Superman. Let's see, and deposited them at the bishop's storehouses at Adam-on-Diamond. He doesn't spell them right. See what? That's going on here? Okay, Whitney's already there. He's got his storehouse there. He's not a bishop, but he's being told by the Danites that it's the bishop's storehouse. This is Joseph's economy after 1827. And so there's a massive difference here, because they use section 119 for their running of the bishop's storehouses, whereas Joseph Smith used Malachi, section 64. Malachi. And there's a mighty big difference in how the economies are run. And so notice there's more than one storehouse at Adam-on-Diamond. They were specifically used for the loot that they were plundering. I'm going to have to stop the video and close the windows. So this is exceedingly fun. I had this plugged in. It shouldn't be a problem because there's cameras or microphones on the camera. But I just have gotten in the habit with my laptop, because if it's plugged in you wouldn't hear me. And that upset me on several occasions. So yeah, we even had some hail coming in and mighty thunder. You're being warned, Mormons, in the coming days. In the coming days. I mean, it's just September 17th. I mean, it's the 6-month anniversary from my birthday. That's all this is. Nothing big. Nothing to see here. Move along. Okay, so the bishop's storehouses were being built for the loot from stealing from other cities. They would go in, murder the people, chase them out, steal from them, and then burn down the city. That's the exact same pattern of the Illuminati. Huh, strange. And so all of the storehouses were being supplied with thefts of stuff. And this is what Thomas B. Marsh found reprehensible. This is abominable. What are you guys doing? You're murdering, stealing, and plundering. And raping of women, too. Remember? It's what they does. But with Thomas B. Marsh with them, he may not, well, we'll have to read, but I don't think I've heard of him talking about that, because he doesn't actually go there. Yeah, Mormons informed me, so the Danites informed him. On the same day, Lyman White marched about 80 horsemen from Millport. Lyman White has a son named Orange White, and I had found his journal entry in which he went to Higbee. I think it's Higbee. Brother Higbee's home, just to visit. And while he was there, talking with Brother Higbee told Orange White that the reason why there are 2 wives in his household is because Joseph Smith had ordered it. Shh, don't tell, because it's illegal. And so, yeah, he's writing this in his book. Higbee is a Danite who was also involved in all of this. So you see, Lyman White, Orange's daddy, also was involved in this. Marched about 80 horsemen from Millport. He returned before night and called for Joseph Smith and Hiram, Hiram Smith. Who's he? I saw him in one of the arrest documents. Is he a cousin? You see, this is Lyman White telling him. He didn't go, Lyman White went. He returned before night and called for Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith to report to them. And Hiram said, being counselor of said Joseph, counselor? Yeah, because daddy's not dead yet. Joseph, the prophet, and said, White reported that he had been in sight of Millport, saw no one to fight, but that the people generally had gone and left their homes and property. The prophet, on hearing the, why is it missing? Shouldn't be missing. On hearing the. Now, I trusted that information as being legitimate when I downloaded it. There's some stuff missing. Wait a minute. Okay. And so then we've got the early 1800s naming for a black person. So be cautious of that. Because if you know Latin, you know that the color black is niger. And so because Africans have black skin, you've got the country then named Nigeria. Nigeria. Gotta say the Ni, because it's Latin. My Latin teacher was very strict on this, to pronounce them correctly and not get lazy with English imposed onto Latin. To turn the, and I probably did it, didn't I? Niger? Yeah, I said Niger, not Niger. You probably hear a lot of people pronounce it Nigeria and Niger. No. It's a G. G. Nigeria. And so, yes, the slang usage that will not be said by me was purposely done as abuse. And then you've got blacks who say, well, only the ones giving blacks a bad name are that word. And then you've got gang rap that it just all flies. But no white person's allowed to say it or sing the songs. Thus, Office Space, the movie with Jennifer Aniston, who's having trouble with Flair. Yeah, the one office worker in his car cranking it up, and then a black man drives up next to him on the freeway that's crowded. And so he sees the guy, and so he rolls up his window and turns down the volume. Being ashamed. So anyway, whatever was missing, I'm not able to use it for this video. The same evening, a number of footmen came up from the direction of Millport, laden with property, which I was informed. All of this he's informed. He never experienced anything firsthand other than he sees people this time with property consisting of beds, clocks, and other household furniture. The same night, I think, about 3 wagons were dispatched for about 40 begums. Not sure what that is. And the next day saw several gums. It's gums, not guns. Where they were splitting them up and taking the honey. Oh, it is, okay. Honeycombs. Taking the honey and burning the honeycomb. The beehives. In which business of, which is interesting because this is the beehive state. They use that as the symbol. Ooh, another burning symbolism too. This is what they plan to do to you, Mormons. They take the money that you give them. They're robbing you, just like the Danites did, because they're the Danites. And then they're going to burn you when they're all done with you. Interesting. And thus they called it Deseret from the Book of Mormon, beehive, honeybee. Interesting. See, these guys use secret words and secret codes. Fascinating. In the witch business, because I'd always wondered, why Deseret? Because Adamon-Diamond, Egyptian, sort of, Paleo-Hebrew mix. Nauvoo, Hebrew, Deseret, Book of Mormon, Egyptian. Very interesting. Because they're the ones who named all this, not Joseph. This was to deceive Mormons. But that's what he did to Joseph. Yep. Interesting. Okay. In which business of taking out the honey, but few were engaged for fear. As they said, they would be called on as witnesses against them. When White returned from Millport and informed Smith that the people were gone and the property left, Smith asked him, see, he's learning from White. He wasn't there. This is hearsay from White's mouth. And yet, despite this, the governor was afraid of all Mormons believing the lie that Joseph Smith was the leader of the Danites. When I already read to you that the Danites themselves didn't claim Joseph to be the leader of the Danites 40 years later. They forgot. Asked him if they had left any of the Negroes for them, and White replied no. Upon which someone laughed and said to Smith, "You have lost your slave then." They're accusing Joseph Smith of having a slave. Joseph Smith didn't have slaves. He had a maid who was 15 years old. Oliver Cowdery was upset that Smith was hanging around with Sidney Rigdon more than Oliver Cowdery, and so Oliver Cowdery was jealous and took his ball and took his seer stone, or his actual rod of Aaron, and left the church before all this hit the fan. That was the big thing that set off the Danites. We got it. Here we go. Oliver Cowdery's out. And so it wasn't until later that Oliver Cowdery found out about Brigham Young saying that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. And so that's when he said that Yeah, I was concerned about Joseph and his maid. They were getting a little too close for comfort. He left because of Sidney Rigdon and Joseph Smith taking the church in a direction that Oliver Cowdery thought would be better. And then he left. That was it. And so, when you have three people, there's always going to be one who's the extra wheel. It's just how it is. You can't have a threesome. It just doesn't work. You've got to be committed to just one. One bestie. That's it. Okay? During the same time, a company called the Fur Company was sent out to bring in fat hogs and cattle, calling the hogs bears and the cattle buffalo. They brought in at one time 7 cattle, and at another time 4 or 5 belonging to the people of Daviess. Hogs were brought in dead, but I know not how many. I saw only 2. They have among them a company consisting of all that are considered true Mormons, called the Danites. So finally, he confesses that they're not actually Mormons, they're those who are considered true Mormons. Right, Desnat? Right, Nelson? Called the Danites. See, he wasn't there for the election fraud. He wasn't there for that war. Who had taken an oath to support the heads of the church. What heads of the church? Not Joseph, but they claim Joseph. They're talking about the quorum of the 12 apostles, those leaders. And then there would be sub-leaders over groups of Danites. Because as you go through the different Danites, you find out that there were many who were Danite leaders. Those were lieutenants, not leaders. But you get Mormons who know nothing about the criminal organization structure, and so then they just lie with the misinformation. Heads of the church in all things that they say or do, whether right or wrong. Because Joseph Smith knows nothing about these guys. This is a secret combination he's talking about here. True Mormons, Danites, secret combination, doing all this stuff behind Joseph's back, getting the real Mormons, who were the true Mormons, in trouble. Getting blamed for what they're doing. Just like Thomas B. Marsh is doing. Even though he does admit, finally, that it's not all Mormons that were bad. Only these true Mormons, called Danites. Many, however, of this band are much dissatisfied with the oath as being against moral or religious principles. Do I need to read Helaman chapter 6? That's where they got it from. They were already doing it prior to. They go against the laws of the land and the laws of their so-called God. This is why Thomas B. Marsh is having difficulties. On Saturday last, I am informed by the Mormons, the true Mormon Danites, come on, they had a meeting at Far West at which they appointed a company of 12 by the name of the Destruction Company for the purpose of burning and destroying. The Cleaners. If you're familiar with John Wick. Oh, you don't watch R-rated movies still? John Wick has cleaners on call after, he takes care of business for them killing his little puppy, given to him by his late girlfriend, who was murdered. Don't kill the puppy. And that if the people of Buncombe came to do mischief upon the people of Caldwell and committed depredations on the Mormons, they were to burn. See how burning? We're usually told that those who are obsessed with arson are bedwetters. To burn Buncombe, come to do mischief, burn Buncombe, and if the people of Clan Ray made any movement against them, this destroying company was to burn Liberty and Richmond. This burning was to be done secretly. Can I make it more obvious? Come on, Thomas. Didn't you read your Book of Mormon? By the going as incendiaries. At the same meeting, I was informed they passed a decree that no Mormon dissenter should leave Caldwell County alive. That Hinckley video clip that I use. If there are any among this people who should ever apostatize, prepare your backs for a good whipping. That was taken by Thomas B. Marsh, supposedly at conference. He was telling the lie about his wife stealing milk and getting excommunicated by Joseph Smith, who's still locked up in Liberty Jail. This is what happened. This is why he left. And so the church purposely used Thomas B. Marsh to lie to Mormons, to threaten them, to pay up the full amount of Section 119 to them. And here Hinckley was doing the same thing, and then Monson doing the same thing, threatening us to pay up. They want their $2. Better than, I've forgotten the title of the movie. Better Off Dead. Or You're Better Off Dead. This church is evil. Let's see. This burning was to be done secretly. At the same meeting, I was informed they passed a decree that no Mormon dissenter should leave Caldwell County alive. And so Sidney Rigdon's salt sermon that he gave during this time period was against the Danites, not against the innocent Mormons. But the Danites twisted it to their advantage. And that such as attempted to do it should be shot down and sent to tell their tale in eternity. In a conversation between Dr. Avard and other Mormons, said Avard proposed to start a pestilence among the Gentiles. Oaks. It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if that criticism is correct. I call BS, and we're going to do it. As he called them, by poisoning their corn, fruit, and etc. Sure enough, they're involved in poisoning. And sure enough, Many of the innocent Mormons who came to Nauvoo naively, didn't join the secret band of Danites, died of a sickness. Joseph Smith Sr. would die of the sickness. Don Carlos Smith would die of the sickness in Nauvoo. After Joseph Smith and Hiram are murdered, Samuel Smith died of poisoning. See how evil these people are running this nation. Still called the state of Deseret. And saying it was the work of the Lord. Danites, judges. And said of Ard advocating lying for the support of their religion. Right, Mormons? I just did the comment reply video this morning. And said it was no harm to lie for the Lord. I do it again. And so, he again believes the plan of said Smith, the prophet, is to take the state, and he professes to his people to intend taking the United States and ultimately the whole world. This is the belief of the church, and my own opinion of the prophet's plans and intentions. Again, he said it wasn't from Smith. This is the Danite plan. To take the state and intends on taking the United States and ultimately the whole world. That's their latter-day plot. Okay? It is my opinion that neither said Smith the prophet or any one of the principal men who is firm in the faith could be indicted for any offense in the county of Caldwell. The prophet inculcates the notion, and it is believed by every true Mormon, Danites, remember, that Smith's prophecies are superior to the law of the land. And it wasn't Smith's prophecies. I have heard the prophet say, because 19 July 1840, Joseph Smith actually says what his plans for the future are. The Danites, led by Brigham Young, will try to coup the American government and destroy the American government by going through and destroying the United States Constitution. How are they doing that? They're already doing it. So we know exactly what that means. Religious freedom? You've already got it in the First Amendment, in that Constitution. Oh, it's so that you can deny rights in the Constitution to others claiming religious freedom as your reasoning. The Lord as your excuse. Just like the Danites. So yes, Martin Harris, Dallin H. Oakes' uncle, third or second uncle. Am I aging you, Oakes? Not by much. Not by much. God. I have heard the prophet say that he should yet tread down his enemies and walk over their dead bodies. That if he was not... See, the enemies are the Danites. Thomas B. Marsh has taken it out of context. That's the whole thing about lying to people, is that when you lie to people, when the person goes and listens to the one who's been lied about and hears them speak, they are already using that incorrect interpretation on them. So, for example, if for some reason, a missionary gives you a Book of Mormon and says it's another testament of Jesus Christ, and see, there's Jesus in 3rd Nephi chapter 11. And so you then start reading from the beginning, and you come across the second verse, 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2, and it says the learning of the Jews. You've already been told by the missionaries you're supposed to interpret that as Christian. And so the missionaries lied to you and made you stupid and illiterate. Ta-da! And walk over their dead bodies. That if he was not let alone, he would be a second Mahomet to the generations. Interesting. And that he would make it one gore of blood from the Rocky Mountains to the Atlantic Ocean. That like Mahomet, whose motto in treating for peace was the Al-Quran or the sword, so should it be eventually with us, Joe Smith or the sword. See, I'm having difficulty believing that he actually heard Joseph Smith say that, because that document is not in the Joseph Smith papers. And previously we already learned that he wasn't hearing from Joseph Smith, that he was hearing from others, and he believed that that was as if it were the word of Joseph Smith. The Danites said, we are obedient to the words of Joseph Smith and his prophecies that we ourselves made up. And so yeah, that whole 85 years thing, oops, forged document of the Danites. These last statements were made during the last summer. The number of armed men at Adam-on-Diamond, made it all one word that time, was between 300 and 400. So no, he did not hear it from Joseph Smith, because he said these last statements were made during the last summer. The number of armed men at Adam-on-Diamond, the Danites, they were the ones saying that this is what Joseph Smith is saying. That's why it's not in the Joseph Smith papers. So, yeah, he doesn't bother to tell the truth here. He's panicked. His life has been threatened. He's been traumatized. So he's doing this affidavit, and he's blaming Joseph for it, when Joseph didn't say it. It was all hearsay. So, yeah, they show that it was sworn and subscribed before me the day hereon written, Henry Jacobs, J.P., Ray County, Missouri. Okay, so that's the real story of Thomas B. Marsh, not the lies of Hinckley and Monson. And so thus the church uses that lie to force us to pay up and obey. So this all is confirmed by Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. Oh, I can still see it when I blued it up. So, way to perfection. I put it away in the box. As you can see, it's put back now. The Way to Perfection, pages 290 and 291. Thrones to be cast down, even in the keys of the everlasting kingdom. And then by the voice of the priesthood. This is Hiram's son. As a boy, went with mom with Heber C. Kimball. She was not his wife. Yeah, Heber just took care of her. And so when you see the bigger picture, it was Heber who helped with Brigham Young to collect the 119 money since 1842 from the ledger that Nelson rushed out last year before Thanksgiving, and I did the 6-hour video series in the red shirt. Wasted my whole Thanksgiving for you. And what thanks did I get for it? Low views. And then new Mormons come around claiming, show us the proof. Dumbasses all. And so, yes, Adam-on-Diamond. This is what this is all about. The transfer of government authority to the Danites, who still to this day are blaming Jesus for it all. The same old situation. I like that. I want to hear that. Same old situation. I need to get back to smaller videos to keep my views up. Nobody cares about these long videos. And so, the government is to be given to the saints of the Most High God. But Heber J. Grant would change that and take it away from the saints. So no, it's for the kingdom, the church. You need to understand that by the time that Joseph Fielding Smith is writing this, the church is already dissolved. The government is gone from Brigham Young under John Taylor. 1887, the United States dissolves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It ceases to exist on the face of the earth because of their perpetual immigration fund of human and child trafficking and human and child sex trafficking. That was the crimes. It wasn't for only polygamy. Polygamy was made worse as sex trafficking. And so then Brigham Young, when Mormons would pay off the debt, would then grant them citizenship in his territory in the United States of America. And so Congress was upset with this, taking away their authority. And so the church lies to you about what really happened during all this time. And so the church doesn't exist anymore. And so the church wants revenge. They want their kingdom back. And they use Adam-on-Diamond as the coding for the coup. That they are going to get the government of the United States of America back. Not just Deseret. And so they use Lucifer as the president of the United States. And Jesus as the president of the church. And so, this is the key thing that Mormons do not understand, and I even had Mormons commenting this. Why didn't we know about this? When the gathering is held, and that's the Council for National Policy, 2021, guys. That's why I'm here. I found out about the Council for National Policy right before the October conference in 2021. I did the videos. I was at risk. YouTube had banned me from posting videos, and I was still under probation at the time, and so I was taking a risk. I can do videos, but I'm under probation. They want me silenced. They're not happy that I sued the church this year. And warned of the coup that was coming in the 2020 election, the previous year. And so, yeah, the church is still pissed. They want to destroy me. They're upset. I got a death threat at the end of 2020 when the church decided that it was just going to be a test run that year. The property manager sends me a signed, dated threat that next year, Travis, I'm getting you. Sure enough, 2021, as the company had to fire her and put somebody else in to do the job so that there wouldn't be the appearance of you're not fooling me. You were very blatant in what you did to me. But anyway, when this gathering is held, so I found this book after conference 2021. And so thus the little bookmark of the missionaries. You're being disloyal, Travis. We're going to shut you down. And now here I am. 2 employees got fired for failing to keep me locked up in Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking. I've been doing all these videos, guys. I know what I'm talking about, and you never respect my knowledge. I'm trying to save your lives. That's why I'm doing the investigation. I know this church is evil. I found their receipt for the 6-year incarceration. The church ordered and paid to lock me up without trial, without hearings, without due process, every law violated, just like that Jesus guy of literal history Christian version. Not prophecy and revelation whatsoever, just a coincidence. And so, this Council for National Policy is the secret combination that the church is in charge of. Everything they are involved with as a member came from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, Project 2025, Heritage Foundation, Council for National Policy, Council for National Policy, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No wonder they're against porn too. Lucifer's plan of happiness for his children. Cover up and hide. And so, it's already been held. The world will not know of it. The members of the church at large will not know of it. Yet it shall be preparatory to the coming in the clouds of glory. Revelation 19, 11, and 17 happened on 8 April 2024. Oops, Nelson failed. Jesus didn't show for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Christians, and Islam. Oops. As the prophet Joseph Smith said, no, he didn't. I'm what Joseph talked about. The world cannot know of it. The saints cannot know of it. It'll be a thief in the night when Jesus comes and burns the wicked. And so, yeah, they didn't expect me to come. The Jews can't prophesy. Can they? Well, you knew their revelations were true because you used them to coordinate your evil attacks. And yet they didn't believe that the prophecies would come true. They fool you into saying Jesus is coming, but you don't know the day and the hour, which they use then as the coordinating secret combination attacks. But the actual prophecy of the Jewish Christ, me, they don't believe. It couldn't possibly be true. How could the ancient Egyptians from many thousands of years ago know of my coming, know of my name, he who is from the crossroads of the sun god at noonday? That all of the Jewish prophecies in story form would come true. But that's what I've been doing on YouTube all these years for you. From the beginning of the latter days to this year, the end of the latter days. Going over every single prophecy that has been fulfilled. every single revelation of days and hours have been fulfilled. We know the days and hours now. They've happened. They're here. They happened. So no man knows the day or the hour? Well, then you're dumb. They've happened. You've got Christian blinders on. But this is all a secret combination to coup the government. Right here, in text. That's why the prophets, before closing down the Salt Lake Temple for renovations for the big earthquake, which, oops, happened the day after my birthday, knocked out the horn of Moroni. And Mormons still are looking for something bigger. That wasn't big enough. We want something more. Then we'll believe. God. But yeah, even the Salt Lake or the DC Temple with the painting of Jesus' second coming. The coup, the destruction of the government, handing it over to the church. And I had Mormons denying when I did these videos. The church wants their kingdom. What do you think this means? The United States took it away. They want it back. That's their whole plot for 200 years. The affidavit, and right here, confirmation. And if you want a third source, Albert Pike. The letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. Hello? Who has the doctrine of Lucifer? This church. The patterns are the same, and you're missing it. And so, finding out about Oakes talking to the missionaries in Las Vegas, Nevada. Oakes does not want people to record him. Conference is as far as he'll allow you to record him. And yet a naughty sister missionary, 19 years of age, disobeyed him. She apparently didn't watch the BBC documentary with Oakes because she's too young. And so Mormons on the whole will not know of this. They're not supposed to know of this. Nobody's supposed to be recording this. He's talking to little kids on their missions in Las Vegas. So at the most 200. I don't know how many missionaries are in Las Vegas, but only them. And so Oakes believes nobody's going to spread the word, especially to me, having already served the church on February 24th. He knows I served the church, the corporation. Heber J. Grant turned it into a corporation. It's not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That was dissolved in 1887 by the United States of America. There is no Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on the face of the earth. There's that other church that named their church the same name, but that's a different... I covered that video last year or earlier this year, something like that. And so, March 14th, 2020, Wikipedia and other news articles have the events that occurred that year. The church even has the events that occurred that year, because there was no attending April conference that year. Remember? Every Mormon believes that Nelson prophesied of it. YouTube began assuming authority as medical doctors when they're not allowed to be imposing themselves as medical doctors. That's a federal crime to fake being a medical doctor. And yet YouTube was doing it to shut me down. And so, know the context. And so it wasn't as big yet of news in this early stages. And so Oakes then says to these missionaries, knowing that Mormons around the world will never hear about this, that none of these missionaries are recording this. Oops. The whole thing is in quotes. This is not the end of the world, but merely a test. Remember? The Danites were involved in disease spreading, poisoning. Here they go again. They are involved with China. This was a deliberate attack. Fox News got it right. Oh. They botched it on the election with the voter machines that they lost the lawsuit with, and then the owner had to quit as they got sued for a lot of money. But for this, they got it right. I guess if you lie so much, eventually something's going to end up being true. And sure enough, the church not only was a part of the conspiracy of this, but the church, knowing in advance that it was going to happen as they're a part of it happening, that's what he's confessing here. This is a test. This is not the end of the world. It's a test. It's a trial run for the second coming, if you will, physically and spiritually. They also were the only corporation to make the hugest amount of profit on the stock market that year. This is stock manipulation. They profited off of this. They were involved in the conspiracy for it to be released, and they profited off of it. See how evil these guys are? Just like the Danites. Stealing from the people. Causing the fight. Stealing. They're still doing the same old tactics. And so then he says, if you've been following the counsel from the prophet about ministering, emergency preparedness, and at-home church, you have no need to fear. You passed the test. So what is following the counsel from the prophet? Ministering. Are you that young that you forgot about home teaching? Home teaching was the communication systems for emergencies. I was told that as an elder, that in a natural disaster, the home teaching program is the perfect communications tool to get the word out as fast as possible. You have the elders quorum president who gets it from the bishop, who gets it from the stake president, and then the elders quorum president contacts with his counselors, contacts each of the missionary heads in their quorum, and then the high priest group for theirs, and then those home teaching leaders then contact their families, and then reporting back through the chain of any needs and emergencies that come up. And it's not just for emergencies, it's whenever during the year. That's what we do once a month, is supposed to visit them every single month to find out how they're doing, and if there's any problems, that the chain of communication has gotten back to the bishop or stake president where necessary. This is how things are supposed to be done in the church. That's why the home teaching program was established way back in the early 1900s, wasn't it? Or was it the mid-1900s? But regardless, gone. Nelson did away with it. You know, as a Mormon, I just barely left the church. My bishop threatened me, saying the Book of Mormon is going against the prophets. Why do you bother coming to church? Excuse me? Okay, I won't come to church anymore. Nobody threatens me. And so, yeah, I would have been murdered by these Danites. That's why they've been trying to murder me. And so, also with ministering, taking away the home teaching, he took away the high priest group. And so Mormons can't get exalted unless you become a high priest. And the only way to become a high priest now is to become a leader of the church. That's it. And so a bishop doesn't have to be a high priest. So that used to be a tradition, that a bishop was a high priest, or back and forth. Not anymore. That's not necessary. You can have an elder become a bishop and never be made a high priest. So he too is not authorized to go into the celestial kingdom in section 76. You have to be a high priest. That's why the Book of Mormon and the Book of Abraham talk about the importance of becoming a high priest. Elders do not get in, and the church knows this. Emergency preparedness, not under Nelson. That's the one thing I've noticed. He's not talking about emergency preparedness. It stopped. Even under Monson, it stopped. Gordon B. Hinckley, I think it even stopped then too. Benson, yes. During Benson's time, I think they were still having the welfare session of conference. Or it was just under Kimball. Can't remember now. But I do remember seeing welfare sessions of conference back in the day. But yeah, I was surprised that I recognized through my associative memory that nobody is talking about emergency preparedness anymore. Nobody's talking about having a year's supply of food, having an emergency kit, 24-hour kit. That was, I think, Benson who last said that. That's right, it was. Because Benson, I remember hearing about a year's supply, and then Benson stopped and started talking about, okay, well, what about a 24-hour supply, Mormons? Can you handle a 24-hour supply in a backpack? I remember that now. Yeah, that's right. That struck me as odd. That no more are we preparing for a year's supply, and yet we find out that it was more than a year. And at-home church. It wasn't just at-home church. It was family home evening has been moved to Sundays. Mondays you can now continue on working into the evening. And Mormons aren't listening because they didn't go to conference to learn about it. And so Mormons are still having family home evenings on Monday. Employers who are Mormons send their workers home early on Monday. No overtime on Monday. Because nobody listens to conference anymore. That's the vacation time from church, where they go to the Capitol and smear poop on the walls. And so nobody listens to the prophets. They're all militant, defending this church, not hearing a single word of what they're supposed to be obeying. These were things that Nelson changed. There were more, and there were more to come. This is 2020. He changed the law of chastity. Every single missionary knew this. They knew the new changes. Polygamy. They knew. And not a single Mormon is obeying polygamy. They're swinging instead. Like the Danites passing around their wives as a nicolaitan band. God, Mormons are so evil. And so a test, Heber C. Kimball. They know about this. And so in 2020, when Nelson called home the missionaries, did the video, a test, fulfilling the prophecy of Heber C. Kimball. It's not a prophecy. It's their plot. All exposed. Thanks to this naive Mormon who believes the church is true and that it's Jesus coming. This is how I do my research. I find the facts, and when something else comes along, I look for a match. And here it is. Oakes confessed to all that I'd found out. And this was back in 2020, that bastard. And yet he was able to get the lawyers to come and get me. And revenge. And yet it must have been, they must be scared to death, because Holland, after I served the filing that one weekend, on that Monday, Holland was being interviewed in the morning with a Jewish rabbi in Israel. And so he wasn't counseled by the lawyers to be updated on the recent filing that I submitted, because that's what lawyers are supposed to do. The prosecution has filed another motion, this is what it says, and then the counsels for the defense are supposed to advise the prophets and do what they tell them to do. And Oakes is a former prosecutor and a former Supreme Court justice of Utah. And that's why he's second. It's because he couldn't give up the world to follow Jesus. So Nelson's first. Nelson was able to quit. And so they had to wait for Holland to finish his morning interview and then join them so that the lawyers can counsel them all together in the group. And we find out 2 weeks later that Holland, upon hearing my filing that weekend that they got on Monday morning, caused him a heart attack, and he got sent to the hospital. It was just carved in stone evidence on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. And the Freedom of Information Act allows you to find out for a certain fee, I guess. If you didn't watch my videos going over it. I think it was on TWG at that time, because YouTube shut down Travis Wayne Goodsell. And so I went to TWG. And I think it was early in 2021 maybe that I came back to Travis Wayne Goodsell, because YouTube shut down TWG, and so then at the end they shut down that before, and then God, YouTube is so abusive. But they were ordered by the church to do this to me. So yeah, 2019, Nelson says we rigged the algorithms of all the search engines of social media and the internet. Because we're the major stockholders. And so yeah, all of these things, you have to listen to these guys. You have to know the bigger picture of what's going on. When the whistleblower came out in 2019, you got to pay attention. It's serious. This church is criminal. They were doing this because of Heber J. Grant, because of the Danites of Brigham Young. Everything they do is to this end. And by saying that no, it's not true, it doesn't work. You cannot be saved in ignorance. You're building up a faith bubble that's going to burst and burn. And you, dear God, have you never even read Albert Pike's letter? It's coming in the coming days. And so, yes, when I do my videos, you need to understand I figured it out. I'm trying to warn you and save your lives, and you just don't care. You don't give a damn. And so, yes, I wanted to retire. You don't want Zion. And just, I'm going to be so frustrated with you after it happens and you survive, and I happen to survive too. Because I'm going to know everything that happened and why. And you are going to be going, how did this happen? What happened? What's going on? What do we do? Who do we follow? The prophets have fled. How could this happen? The church was true. And I'm just going to go, bleep you. And then you're going to get mad at me. Why are you getting mad at me? I've been warning you for years and you would not listen. Well, YouTube never showed me your channel. Exactly. Exactly. The federal government failed us. That's what it means. That's what pissed me off with January 6th. Not that it happened, but that I had warned my federal government in advance and it still happened. And here we go again. I have warned my government in advance, and it's still set to happen. It's pissing me off. So, that's the whole plot. That's what it means. And for you to just be ignorant about it, to deny it, to attack me, makes you the enemy. They're using you. And they're going to destroy you. They do not love you. They're not speaking for Jesus. Jesus doesn't exist, remember? Constantine. It's all code. You fell for it. That was an awesome storm. Gotta put back up the windows.